I will call to order the March 1st, 2010 Board of Commissioners work session, and wanted to let you know that I'm on standby for a trial, so if I get a phone call, I'll need to step out. But we should be able to take care of this meeting, and hopefully I can resolve the other matter. First thing we have on the agenda, we have the agenda that's before us. There's no additions that I know of other than the inclusion of, on page 86, we have a motion to approve the agenda as is for today.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. In regards to the consent agenda, the Commerce Department, Sheriff's Department, Tax Administration, and the Tax Department, is there any reason that we need to discuss that today, or can that go into the consent agenda for March the 15th?
Move it be on the consent, placed in the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. The new business that we'll start today is found on page 17, the North Carolina Department of Transportation Public Transportation Division, Section 5, 5311, grant for the fiscal year 2010-2011. Mr. Bass.
We bring before you the 5311, our yearly grant request that we do to the state of North Carolina for assistance in our transportation cost, and we are asking that for a public hearing to be held at your next meeting so that we can meet the requirements of the grant request.
And this is no money coming from the county, correct?
No money, no sir. This is money coming into the county.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. Bass? We have a motion to place this on the new business agenda for a public hearing and potentially the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you.
G2 is the non-renewal fire protection contract with Enochville Volunteer Fire Department. And I would call on Mr. Stephen Langer.
Good evening. The purpose of me being here is to request this permission from this board to send a letter to the Enochville Fire Department on behalf of the county's intent to not contract for fire protection for the following year. The reason we are asking the board to do that is in the past we have had response issues with the department. Last year alone we had 20 calls that they did not respond to. Response times anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. Last year the board approved a resolution allowing Odell to enter into a financing agreement to build a second station. With that second station and with Kannapolis Station 5 and Station 2, we have found a way to provide better protection, faster response at a cheaper tax rate, and lower insurance premiums for most of the people in the district. So the requirements of the contract require that we give them a 90-day notice prior to the end of the budget year. So
The citizens that live in Cabarrus County will be protected, you said, as through Odell?
Through Odell and through Kannapolis.
Okay. And it's actually going to potentially have better times, response times?
Oh, definitely, because they'll be provided coverage from a full paid department for the most part.
Okay.
We have spoke with Kannapolis, and Kannapolis has agreed to do that. We have sent maps to the state. Late Friday, we received a fax from the state approving those maps. So in the coming months, I'll come before this board next month with those maps, asking the board to hold a public hearing, probably for May, to approve those district changes.
Okay.
And again, this will cut their fire tax rate. Currently, Enochville is a 6. Has a 6 cents on $100, and they're a Class 9 insurance rating. This will drop most of them down to a 3 or 3.5, depending on whether or not they go into Odell or Kannapolis. Their insurance rating, there's a large portion of the district that does have hydrants, so these people will drop down to a minimum of a 6, and that is a 36% saving on their insurance. So,
okay.
These significant savings.
Any other questions? We have a motion to place this under consent agenda. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Thank you. Next is G3, is the adoption of revised fund balance policy and budget amendment. Mrs. Dubois?
Yes, typically we bring this in front of the board after the annual audit has been completed and approved. However, we wanted to wait to further into the fiscal year to bring this in front of the board. So what we're asking for is to modify the resolution that was adopted in 2005 to add some constraints that allow us to have a little more flexibility due to the economic conditions that we're in. And if you look on page 30 in the agenda item, you will see the amendments that we were requesting to be placed with the resolution. And basically that's providing us, one thing is more flexibility to allow us to transfer some of those excess funds to our self-insured hospitalization, liability, and workers' compensation funds so that we can maintain the integrity of the reserves within those funds. And the fourth option we're asking is for us to have the ability to appropriate any general fund revenues to overcome revenue shortfalls related to significant downturns in the economy. And those are the two amendments that we are requesting to be placed on the resolution and for approval. We have inside the agenda packet on page 29 the calculation for the fund balance appropriation, and that calculation brings us out to about $9.1 million of excess of over 15%. We're requesting that $2 million of that be transferred, $1 million to the hospitalization fund and $1 million to the workers' comp fund to help alleviate some of the constraints that are on those funds so that we do not have to fund them through our annual budget process. And that would leave us $7.1 million for items that we could utilize the monies for capital items or for balancing the budget over the next 2 to 3 fiscal years. So we're requesting to leave those monies in the general fund so that they would be available for use, because once you transfer them to the capital reserve fund, you can only use them for construction projects, and we wanted to make sure that we had that flexibility as we go through the budget process this year. And I think that would be the two requests that I have, is to adopt the budget amendment to allow us to move the $2 million to the self-insured funds and to update the resolution as presented.
Any questions?
Put it under new business.
We got a motion. We have a second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. When you presented on March the 15th, if you could explain a little bit about how many contributions we've made in the past years to the Workers' Compensation Fund and make reference to that information, please, ma'am.
To the workers' comp?
Workers' comp, and because it's been we've made no contributions, and I think that's important as to why we're doing it now. Okay. And how we've basically taken care of the health insurance and in the past, and this is not a year in and year out funding. Okay. Thank you. Next we have is G4, is a finance budget amendment, Sheriff's Office, or Sheriff's Administration Building construction closeout, and adoption of the capital project ordinance. Mrs. Farrington.
Yes, before you have a budget amendment that's going to close out the Sheriff's Administration portion of the construction fund, and will only leave the housing unit behind in that fund. And also, this sets up the liability to make our arbitrage payment for the funding, for the COPS funding for that fund. And also, we have a revised capital project ordinance for the Justice Center and a revised capital reserve resolution, just updating the amounts to get them to match our current expenses for those two funds.
Would you explain what arbitrage means? Yes.
That's when you borrow funds and you earn interest on the borrowed funds more than your interest payments, the difference in the interest rates. And we actually have to have a arbitrage rebate calculation done. And the company, if you don't spend your money within 2 years, then you might fall into this arbitrage situation. It doesn't matter what interest rates you're earning or what you paid for the debt, as long as you spend your funds within 2 years. Well, with this particular project went over the 2-year mark, and we had the arbitrage calculation prepared by Bingham, and we do owe this amount of money. We just got the report last week. The amount that we're going to owe for the arbitrage is $131,000, which is also set up in the budget amendment.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Farrington? And we have not have we paid everything off in regards to the law enforcement building?
For the sheriff's administration and the annex, yes. The housing units, of course, is still going on.
And both of those buildings came in under budget
Yes.
and came under, okay, so we actually had a refund or return of money, or we didn't spend
Correct.
the money that we anticipated.
Correct,
And that
in
was
both instances.
And that was including the construction manager at risk price.
Yes.
That's everything, lock, stock, barrel, drive off the lot.
I went ahead and brought with me the amount that we're going to be showing as our assets. For the administration building, we'll be showing a building for $37 million. And for the annex, it will be $16 million plus some land for both of those. We had spent $4.2 million on land for the project.
Great.
So that'll be.
Are there any other questions for Mrs. Farrington at this time? Okay. Do we want to put this under new business or under consent? We have a motion to place it under consent. We have a second? Second. We have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. G5 is the request by Research City LLC for refund of ad valorem taxes paid on real property, and our attorney, Mr. Cook, will be assisting us on this, or presenting.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had provided the board with a memo a couple of weeks ago about this situation in which Research City LLC is requesting a refund of some taxes they paid on some property that they bought at a foreclosure sale. And the way this has to be handled is for the board to consider what amounts to an appeal by the taxpayer for that refund. And I wanted you to have that information in advance so you'd be prepared to consider it. But since you don't make decisions at the work session, it would be something that I would recommend that you put on the agenda under new business for the March 15th meeting. Zach Moretz, who's an attorney here in town representing Ed McAfee, who's the principal of Research City, will make an appeal-type presentation to you to attempt to convince you as to why you should refund those or agree to refund those taxes.
When we received information in the memo, there was a reference to contact being made or possibly being made to the tax administration office. Will we have information live, somebody coming and telling us that those calls were not received, were received, this is what the response was, or I mean, how is that information going to get before this board? Have you thought that through?
We could have those individuals available.
Well,
I mean, we really, I'm not sure that we know with precision who Zach Moretz's paralegal spoke to. Okay. She in some correspondence, they've made a claim that they talked to Debbie in the tax office, and Debbie Farmer, who's the only Debbie that would have been involved with that, has indicated that she did not have any communication with them. So, but I can certainly make those folks available in the event the board wants to question them as to what contact they did have.
Let me ask you that the issue is whether there's 3 ways in which taxes can be refunded. Is that correct? I mean, is it 3 or 2 or?
It's 3.
And
yes.
Scrivener's error.
Correct.
Scrivener's error is when you, how about explaining Scrivener's error? I'll let you.
Scrivener's error is just a situation in which someone in the tax collector's office posts it to the wrong account. And it's clearly something that was internal to the tax office, and it's just something that they can, they can very simply correct. That's the first way. The second way concerns an illegal or invalid tax. And that's not the issue in this case, because there's no question but that the tax that was imposed on that piece of property was a legal tax. There's no issue about whether it be an exempt or whether the wrong rate was applied or whether it's in some other way property that would not be subject to being taxed. So those situations do not apply either. This is a somewhat unique situation in the sense that they have, they actually paid the right amount of tax on the property they thought they were paying it on. Their problem is that they thought they owned it at the time they paid the tax, but they've now discovered subsequently that there was a defect in the title. So they went back and completely undid the transaction by which they purchased the property, so they no longer own it. But they in fact paid the taxes for that property because they intended to do so, thinking that they had clear title. So the real issue in my mind is well, the issue from the county's point of view is whether under that section of the Machinery Act that you can validly refund the taxes to them. I think that's the issue.
And if we cannot validly refund the taxes and we refund the taxes, then what's the result?
Well, the result potentially is that you could each be personally liable for the amount of taxes that you voted.
Right.
Those of you that would vote to refund the taxes could be held personally liable if someone were to assert that in a subsequent legal proceeding. Well, it was actually a homeowners association lien foreclosure that, and they had a public sale of the property pursuant to that foreclosure and Research City LLC was the high bidder at that public foreclosure sale. At the time that they paid the taxes, they thought they owned it.
Let me stop right there. On a foreclosure sale, you buy the land as is. There's no protection, no nothing. You buy it as it comes to you.
That's correct.
Whether it's good title, bad title, or anything. Is that correct?
That's right. You buy it as is, where is, with reference to condition and also with reference to matters of title. So in that sense, you know, when you buy at that type of a sale, whether it be a foreclosure sale, sheriff sale, it's all sold, you know, without any warranties whatsoever. And if you are willing to take that chance that you're getting good title and property in good condition, then you do so. Usually the price that you pay for it is reflective of the fact that you're buying it under those circumstances. So I cannot, without the county conducting a title search of the property, I could not tell you who actually technically owned it. That's the only way that we could determine that. I don't really think in this situation that's the county's responsibility to go back and try to figure that out. There was a intervening bankruptcy that may not have been picked up by someone who searched the title in the past, procured title insurance, and then a subsequent title searcher relied on that title insurance from the prior transaction. You'd have to go back and basically do almost a forensic type title search to figure out what the situation would be on it.
If we denied their request for the county to refund their taxes, they still have the opportunity as an individual to go on their own, make the determination as to who owned it and who actually owed the taxes. I mean, do they have any other relief?
They can go against the true owner of the property.
That's what I mean.
Right.
Okay.
Well, they actually have two options. That's right. They can. One is that they can go to the Property Tax Commission with it. But aside from that, that would be an appeal within this process. But they always have the remedy. There is a statute on the Machinery Act that allows whoever pays taxes essentially by mistake to go back and have a remedy against the person who actually owed those taxes. And that could be, you know, based on what I've seen in the documentation, one of a couple of different people or entities. I'm just not exactly sure what happened back in the chain of title and who actually owes the taxes, but there's somebody living out there in that property.
Rich, you
And
said that the homeowners homeowners association may have owned this property?
No, they just foreclosed their lien for homeowners' dues.
Okay, but then they sold it. They would have sold it.
You know, they foreclosed their homeowners association lien, and they sold it at public sale.
So the homeowners association sold the property.
They never owned it. They just had a lien that they could foreclose, almost in the way of a bank that holds a mortgage.
Who was representing?
It's not the same, but it's very similar.
Do you know who was representing the homeowners association?
Zach Moretz was.
Okay.
He actually conducted the foreclosure procedure and the sale.
It was bought by Research City.
Correct.
And that's Mr. Ed McAfee.
Correct.
Okay. And then so Zach also represents Mr. McAfee.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Poole, do you have any questions?
No, she asked my questions and you answered them, so that was a good thing. I'd make a motion to put it on new business since we're planning on having guest speakers.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
motion carries.
Is it the board's pleasure that we have some people from the tax office here?
Based on your answers today, I don't think we need to have anybody here, but I do think that it's important that when you present the information to us, tell us a little bit about the history.
Yes.
That as similar to what you have in your memo.
Okay, I'll do that.
And the liability to the board members.
Is there any other question? Anything else? I believe that takes care of what we have today. Is that correct, Mrs. Honeycutt?
Scroll all the way down.
G6, resolution relating to the amendment of the existing consent agreement to allow rendering of voluntary mitigation payments at building permitting for lots which no voluntary mitigation payment has been made. This is what we discussed at our board retreat.
And we don't have a resolution for you tonight. Rich is going to draft that and would have it done by the end of the week. So we put the item on here for you and can send that out as soon as it's completed.
Do we have a motion to place this under
New business.
new business? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now, is there any other business that needs to come before this board today?
If you want to have it close.
Mr. Chairman, is the remaining agenda items okay?
Ma'am?
I'm sorry, is the remaining agenda items okay?
I thought that we addressed that at the beginning.
Just wanted to clarify.
About the appointments. We do have a report from the Harrisburg Land Use Plan. I think that's it that we have right now. We do have one closed session matter to address or discuss
For the
expansion or relocation of businesses in Cabarrus County. Do we have a motion to go into closed session to address that issue?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. I do not believe that there will be no other business conducted at the close of our closed session meeting, so we will be adjourned after that, since there will be no new business, just to let everybody know. Thank you all.